Before we begin, two messages. When my company needed to develop a key mobile product, one that I was counting on as a new source of revenue, I knew exactly who to turn to. Macadamian. They delivered on time with incredible attention to detail, and I was able to get product into customers' hands faster than I ever thought possible. I've personally known them for 10 years, and they do make great products even better. Check them out at www.macadamian.com. What mobile platform do companies like eBay, NBC Universal, the Los Angeles Times, Razorfish, and PayPal use to build their cross-platform native applications? Titanium by Appcelerator. They aren't alone. There are now over 25,000 apps deployed by Appcelerator, which has been called the Rosetta Stone of app development. And you can start now for free. Just go to www.appcelerator.com for more information. Hello everybody, welcome to Untether.tv. This is that place that you've come to rely on for these in-depth interviews about the mobile space, about new businesses, new entrepreneurs, paving the way, actually literally paving the way in the mobile space. Guys who you probably think are crazy doing what they're doing, but they're the ones who are they persevere and create these businesses that we'll take for granted in a year or so. And I am joined today by Salman Habib, who is the VP of Business Development for a company, a Toronto-based company. That's Toronto, Canada-based company called Bizmey. And I'm just going to say what Bizmey does. It's a mobile application distribution network. We're going to figure out what that means. We're also going to figure out how this company came to be, why it came to be, some of the challenges that they've had, and also we're going to talk about their business model. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, but I just want to welcome Salman. Salman, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's really interesting.
Well, I'm a Canadian. I'm a very proud Canadian, and not just around hockey season, the Olympics, or Canada Day. For me, it's 365 days a year. Maybe not so, I'm not such a great fan of the Jays, but every day they grow on me.
Well, what about the Raptors? I haven't heard anything about that.
No Raptors. No Raptors. No basketball. I'm not saying they're bad. Got a good friend in a guy named Doug Soltis, who is a Raptors freak. So if he's listening, Doug, you made it into the show because of the Raptors. But so, I always want to bring out Canadian companies, and you're one of them. And I think that your business model is unique, and we're going to get into this. But so explain what is a mobile application distribution network? How do you classify this thing? What do you guys do?
So it's kind of, I guess, borderline between the mobile ad networks and just distribution. So there's conventional channels of distribution that you have. So one of the big ones would be your ad mobs and your iAds. Now those are kind of paid solutions where you have to pay into the system. With the distribution model, it's more so like a shared network. So we leverage, it's kind of a sharing model with different applications. So you'll have app A, B, C, D all plugged into the network. They contribute their users into the network and in return get users back.
So, I mean, when you talk about the ad networks, you're talking about these guys who are, like you said, ad mob, that basically handle display ads, right? So banner ads in applications, and people drop their code drop AdMob's code into their app, create a, so that they can actually turn this into revenue, right? So, but yours is a little bit of a different spin because you're not so much driving revenue as you are trying to drive app awareness, right?
Yeah, it's more so our focus with this, and it is just the beginning here. We want to evolve it and grow it as we go, but kind of using that lean principle of that minimum viable product. It's more so about getting users for the applications.
Okay.
And so rather than exchanging, a monetary value for these users, the exchange is actually a user for a user.
Okay. So, I mean, it's basically one big, as the name says, network, and because what was it that you saw that this is that made you guys move into this business?
So kind of how we decided to shift into this.
Well, a little bit of history for the company. You guys have been around for about 18 months now or so. just a little less, and you started in virtual currency, which
Yep.
I mean is now kind of coming to light, certainly becoming a little bit more mainstream. But you were in the virtual currency business, and then you guys woke up one day, you said 3 or 4 months ago, and said, okay, we don't want to be in that business anymore. We want to be in this, certainly this application or mobile application distribution network. How did that, what did you guys see that made you guys move into this space?
Well, with the virtual currency space, we really brought in a lot of advertisers platform and engaged web users, with offers, videos, that kind of stuff. But there wasn't any virtual currency platform that was doing this with mobile applications where there was a possibility of this. Now, I don't mean on the mobile platform, because Tapjoy and your Super Rewards, they have their mobile kind of exchanges with apps. Now, interesting thing is Apple obviously booted them off, or kind of booted that entire structure off back in, I think it was July.
Yes.
But what we wanted to do with that space, a platform that let users on the web or their web games earn currency for downloading mobile apps.
Okay.
And so that was a unique kind of value proposition. And so when Apple had made this decision, we said, well, what pivot do we take? Where's for a solution? And then kind of taking it a step above where the virtual currency was, which was really a platform that aggregated, or partnered with companies that aggregated a lot of these ads or brands. We decided, well, why not become one of those aggregators? Why not collect all these apps that have these difficulties and then try to identify that pain and kind of go from there?
So, I mean, obviously the pain is the fact that there are, on all these platforms, 750,000 mobile applications, and app discovery is the single greatest nightmare. It's not about development or cross-platform development. It's kind of a very small piece of this whole puzzle, because you can build the best app and not have anybody ever download it or buy it.
Yeah, it's
so the idea is app discovery, right? And that's at the bare bones of this, it's listen, don't advertise. Don't advertise in your app for a product. Advertise in your app for somebody else's app, and kind of allow them to download, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of the way that we identify the industry is that with that, you have a lot of brand advertising in mobile, which I think it's still an identifiable need. Sure. But I think as we go on, mobile apps are going to be those kinds of brands that need that identification. And that's just kind of the way that we see it. Like it's apps are becoming brand. Companies realize the potential in that space more and more, that it's going to be there's going to be a need to advertise it just as much. Or
you hit it right on. I think what was appealing to this for me was that, listen, if I'm in an app and I see a banner ad for some other app. Right, I'm just going to pull one up, for example, here as we're doing this live, because I want to office time. Right, I'm in an app, and it's a free app. So say let's say it's Greplin, or it's I don't know, any of the other apps, Scatterbrain. Mm-hmm. I'm in that app, and there's a banner ad that comes up. Boom. All right. So now it's saying office time. It's not really targeted. But those are both productivity apps, so they're saying, okay, maybe this will do it. But I don't know Office Time from Office Jam or Office this or Office that, right? So the brand doesn't mean anything to me, really, because unless it's like it says, Microsoft or Apple, I don't know many brands, right?
Yeah.
So Office Time doesn't mean anything to me. And what I love about what you guys are doing is, listen, you know what? It's if I'm in an app and I'm in a productivity app, and it's not an ad for the company. It's an ad for this application to go and download it. Does it look the same? Like, is it a banner ad that you pop up?
Well, It's a template, so it comes up as an offer wall.
Yeah.
So the way that we engage the user is, we offer the SDK to the developer. They can design a button on their menu, or they can however creatively they want.
Okay.
They can engage their user saying, hey, here's some apps you can try out or something like that.
Right.
Once the user goes in, there's a list of 10 applications they can try. Right now it's been templated so that, and this, kind of going back to that lean model, is it'll show the app, and then the user, or sorry, the developer who's sharing this app can then decide what their title is going to be and what the brief description of the app is. And then they have the option of, it's a free app or it's a paid app or whatever they want to put in there.
That's so effective, though. Wouldn't you say, like, it's like, if you're a game publisher and you're doing this on behalf of other games, you'll typically have a more games tab, right?
Absolutely.
Or more apps. And ultimately, what you guys are doing is that more apps tab.
More apps, try new games, stuff that you wouldn't normally see.
That's so. I mean, I love this because it reminds me of web rings back in the late '90s, right? Where it was like they were grouped together. Websites were grouped together, and they had the banners that said "Go to the next one of this group," and it was actually a very effective way to get a lot of traffic back then, before there were hundreds of millions of websites on it.
Yeah.
But so you did this, and you pivoted 4 months ago, and you opened up a kind of a beta, and numbers aren't very important at this point because you're in beta. But I mean, what's the response been like? Do people get this? It must be a pain.
The concept is it takes a little bit of time to get that concept across to developers, as the conventional models are like, well, am I paying per installation? And then, the cost per clicks, the cost per installations, and, well, how does it differ from the Android or, the whatever's out there?
Yeah.
And so getting that point across takes a little bit of time, but once that point is across, the developers have wonderful feedback. They say, well, this is definitely great. Let us know when you're ready, when you're at that scalable point.
Yep.
And so, we've got a wonderful list of developers there for 2-3 months down the line. So we're just kind of, navigating and iterating up until that point.
Well, I mean, okay, so this is obviously still in beta, but what's the competitive landscape like for these kind of things? Are you seeing a lot of other companies in this space? I mean, are you modeled on something, or do you just look at this and say, you know what, straight up, game for game or app for app, what we want to do is facilitate that transaction, which is just literally create awareness for some of these great apps that are out there. Are you seeing any competition?
There's a couple of competitors in the space. The models are a little different in how they kind of approach it. So with the user experience, you have your impressions, you have your click-throughs, and then you have the installation.
Yeah.
A lot of the competitors that we've seen are based off of the impression. And so, they'll go off of, you get one impression on the wall, that'll earn you 4 or 5 impressions on 4 or 5 other walls. Okay. Mathematically, don't really know if that works, but then you have others that just focus on the installations or focus on the clicks. Now, we made a call on that, saying, okay, well, what's possibly the most effective or the fairest way to go about it? And so we just kind of decided to stick with the clicks in that perspective. But that's generally the measurement of the model.
So, I mean, walk us through that. So if I'm participating in this, and I'm engaged in this, how do I get my app to come up on somebody else's app through you guys? Is it? I mean, do I need to get 10 click-throughs to get a display? I mean, what is it for you guys?
So if you have an app and you want it displayed on other applications, then what you do is you have this app integrated, and for whatever user base you have at that present time, let's say 10 users decide to click on that button that you've integrated and click through these applications. Yeah. That earns you 10 clicks in the network.
Yeah.
And so 10 clicks means you have unlimited impressions on other applications or other application walls.
Okay.
Until those clicks are met. Okay.
Okay. So until somebody clicks 10 times on your app. So that's the parity, right? So every time that, so I mean, an entrance level is 1 click ultimately. then your
Yeah.
app is displayed until somebody clicks that one click, and then if you haven't generated another click for somebody else's app, yours kind of goes off the grid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole idea there is to kind of filter out and make sure there's a balance in, because ultimately, if a user clicks through and they're not getting recommended good apps, then that that messes up the user experience as well, and so eventually it's designed so that the
Sorry, we lost you there. It's designed so
sorry.
that
the good apps are the ones that bubble up to the top.
okay. And I think that it's a really can you game this? Do you think? Are you worried about people gaming it?
We don't really think there is a way to game it. Obviously, I don't want to.
Yeah, is that a challenge?
I don't want to challenge any of the users here to figure that out. But no, it's a very simple algorithm that we've developed that just makes sure. I mean, unless you have 1,000 friends or you have some popular friends that'll tweet it for you, and then that's probably the game.
I mean, being popular or hey, creating a really great application. That might be the best way to game the system.
That's a pretty good one. Never crossed my mind.
Well, because there are a lot of applications that are out there that I look at, and I mean I download hundreds or thousands of them in a month, and I play around with them, and there are a lot of great applications out there that unless you're going to dedicate the time like I do, discovery is always the biggest challenge. So
yeah, absolutely.
But they're going to use Bizmey with with something like Chomp or any other discovery engines, aren't they? You kind of yours is just one option for application discovery in a sea of other options, right?
Yeah, the kind of the way that we've wanted to develop this is to be so discreet that it doesn't interfere with many of these others, like your score loop or your open feint. Just being able to integrate with that as an additional method of distribution.
So, how do you get the word out about something like this? Like how do you it's one thing to create a great idea, which is what you guys are doing. But then it's about how do you get the word out? I mean, what tactics have you used to be able to spread this? And answer that question first, and I got another one. How do you get the word out?
So getting the word out is really just, for us, it's been a lot of going to conferences, networking with people that understand the space, and just finding the early adopters that understand the model and can then I guess multiply that effect of hey, this is a great concept, it's a great idea, as well as the online kind of tactics.
Yeah, so carpet bombing social media, and I mean finding game developers and reaching out to those game developers, and the standard stuff. But I mean, what's the threshold for you for apps? I mean, how many apps do you need in this system in order for it to really add a tremendous amount of value to make it competitive enough so that the cream does rise, and that you don't just have 10 apps in there that are mediocre, right? And the best of the crap kind of rises, kind of thing.
Yeah,
is it 1,000 apps, do you think, or is it 10,000 apps that are engaged with you guys? What do you think it is?
That's an interesting question. I think my partner would probably be able to answer that better than me.
Okay.
But I could estimate something between 1,000 and 1,500.
Okay. Yeah.
Volume that these apps are having these days, like.
And I wonder, is it it'd be interesting to say, is like, do you have a threshold of popularity, so that if an app that is doing quite well on the app stores comes in there and is always going to be number one, do you look at that and say, maybe we won't accept it because it's too good, it's already too popular, and you're kind of looking for a subset of applications that are great but aren't experiencing an updraft, so that you can bring the bottom, that long tail up a little bit. Because I can see that if your top 10 gets a little bit stale, right, then people are going to click on it. It's going to be the same 10 games, right, or same 10 apps that you have on there. Is that good or is that bad? I mean,
that's an interesting question. I think having those kind of applications. There are the positives and negatives. The positive I see from that is that you're now accessing a greater user base.
Right.
And so, just having the opportunity for all these other applications. And the way that we've designed it is so that it's not always the top 10 showing up in our offer wall. It's a mix between everything. And then giving them the opportunity through these apps that are already so high up, the chance to kind of get additional visibility.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense, and I'm going to assume that there's also some kind of segmentation. I know you're in beta, so I mean, you're building this as you're going based on feedback. But is there going to be segmentation? User segmentation. So if I have installed Bizmey as a developer in a productivity app, then I'm going to be segmented. That listen, inside a productivity app, you're going to get to do. Or list management, or time trackers, like I've said, or a diary or something like that. You're going to segment like that based on the app that it's in?
It's already built into the system, so that the developer can decide what categories they want visible in their offers.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then hopefully, what happens as your app catalog swells, that what you end up having is a finer segmentation, right? So that listen, if this is embedded in a to-do app, like Wunderlist or something like that, you're not going to advertise another to-do list in that, right? So that it's non-competitive for that application. I'm going to assume that that's going to happen, right?
Yeah. We wouldn't want cannibalization to be happening within the applications either, so we have to about that as well.
Okay, because it just opens up like a web, right, where you've got to give so many options so that the app maker feels very comfortable that he or she or that company is not going to promote their competitor, right?
That's true.
Almost like you've got to put a Boolean search in there that says, all of these minus this company name, right? So, I think it's a really interesting thing, because the more segmented you can get, the more tailored you can get, the more effective it's going to be for all those apps, thus driving up their click-throughs, thus driving up the awareness. It's a great circle. So cool, right? I get excited talking about this.
It's fun stuff.
Is there an idea of, based on the 4 months that you've been doing this, is there an idea of what type of app is the best type of app for something like this?
We've done research on the market for it. So there's the top 4 categories that I can mention here. So games,
yep,
entertainment apps, absolutely.
Games are like way up here, right at the very top.
Yeah. So you got like games,
yeah,
and then you got the next one that's like way down here. You can't even see it on the screen.
Yeah.
But it's something like I think it was games, entertainment, educational apps. Now I know educational apps, in my opinion, I think are going to completely take a larger percentage of that.
Sure.
Only because a lot of these educational companies are now understanding that potential in mobile there, and how to interact with kids, students.
Yep.
And then I think it was finance. I can't remember the 4th one,
okay,
but there.
Games, right? Right now, I mean, everybody talks about the second to games is a precipitous fall from games. Like, games are dominating this.
Without a doubt, yeah.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And it shouldn't, because these platforms are gaming platforms ultimately, and everybody's looking for distraction anyways with them. But
it totally feels like it. Just on that note, real quick, I don't know if you've seen the Kal-El chip. NVIDIA is now, in the mobile space, and that just blew my mind.
Yeah,
that just blew my mind. I'm like, okay, this is it right here. Forget all the consoles now. This is 2 years from now. I just want a tablet, and that's going to be my gaming device.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because something as simple as augmented reality. Stationary augmented reality. So somehow you got to be able to put the tablet so that you can interact with it without touching your hands, without holding it in your hand. But have you seen the domino augmented reality, where you can draw a string of dominoes, and then you use your finger and flick it, and it knocks down the dominoes, right? That it might sound so simple and stupid, but when you think about the implication of mobile gaming with something like that, because the screen all of a sudden becomes the conduit, and anything you're looking at becomes the board, or the game board. all of a sudden you've got, you're not tied to a physical monitor or a device or a console system. You can play this anywhere and on as big a platform as you want. It's pretty incredible, right? All it is processing and battery power, and that's what those are the limitations, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that if you have a tablet with a with a massive processor, it's probably going to burn a hole in your lap, but or certainly keep you from having kids. But what about making money off of this? Like this seems like a very altruistic approach of findability, of helping people find applications and discover applications. But how, if you're doing this as an exchange, how do you make money? How does Bizmey make some cash?
So this kind of goes to the life cycle of applications. Not every application is going to be at the top forever.
Right.
Angry Birds, I mean, as great as they are, they're not at the top forever either, and that's a pretty up there case. Yep. But even with this, this network of 2,000 applications at capacity, there's still going to be a lot of recycling going on in terms of apps. But what we want to do, and this is called App Wheels. So this is where the click exchange happens. One of the 10 applications is an advertised application. So this is where you'll have the larger developers. They'll shell out the money to get the installations, which is okay. Yeah. Publishers on that end, we facilitate everything. Now, going back to the life cycle of the application, once developers feel or have the idea that they've hit that critical mass of users, they can then shift over to a pure advertising model. So rather than having an exchange of all or an exchange with other applications in the network, yep, every one of those applications can be an advertised application, which is just then generating just consistent amounts of revenue until it, I guess, reaches that tail end of the life cycle. Okay,
I mean that's an interesting thing, is that so you're gonna play both sides here. So you're gonna allow them to do ads as well as advertise other games, like just standard ads.
No, well, not standard ads, but advertised apps.
Okay, all right.
So it's just going to be app based, yeah.
And then, and you said one of the 10 are they're going to pay you for that spot. Is that ultimately what it was?
Yeah, one of the 10 is a paid spot.
It's just you see that in quite a bit, and so this is obviously a massive volume play. You've been bootstrapping this from the get go, and I mean, are you trying to raise funds?
We're looking to raise in the next couple of months, and this is once that concept and everything is solidified there. Yeah. And so that's the stage we're at in the funding process.
Okay, and you mentioned to me before we started recording that you're doing consulting on the side. I mean, you're doing client work on the side to kind of fund the Bizmey product, right?
Yep.
Or to fund the mobile application distribution network. How does that work? I've heard a lot of companies or a lot of entrepreneurs say, "Listen, I'm going to do the consulting on the side, and so I can build the product without raising some funds." But it ends up being quite a distraction from the actual product. So you're working on client work, and you're not working on your actual product. How are you guys balancing that?
We get pretty intense.
So, what do you mean? You work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what entrepreneur doesn't. That definitely wants to.
The ones that are out of business, they don't. Right?
Yeah, but so the consulting and kind of how that worked was, we'll take on one or two big projects, and there's a bit of time that is spent in that, a couple hours, maybe a day or a couple hours a week, to kind of just maintain everything once it's set. But that's enough of a runway for 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like, okay, well, let's do another one if we need to. But it's really just focusing on building this product and this system and this network.
What's the size of your team now?
So in Canada, we are up to 4. And we have a development team out in Jakarta.
Oh, Indonesia.
Yep.
Not India, or not Nepal. I mean, Is it just because of connections, or is it
Yeah,
okay?
connections as well as in technology, very very solid base there of
Yeah,
very very good developers, and it's a place that doesn't get enough attention when you compare it to one of those behemoths like India.
yeah.
But yeah, definitely a lot of potential there.
Well, I mean, talk about that experience. Is it you've obviously from your history in business, you've worked with larger companies, you've worked with nonprofits, you've done a lot of these things. I mean, what is it like working, building an application with an overseas development team that's literally 12-hour time difference, and has it been a challenge for you guys, or is this just something that came very naturally?
It's natural now, so
Natural now. Nice. Well put. Well put.
it's yeah. I guess you have to work towards the natural, but so building the business during the day,
Yep.
or working on the business during the day, and then focusing on the development during the night. So just kind of being up and figuring out what's wrong in that platform, and then doing the developments and the adjustments with the team at night.
I mean, it almost makes sense where you can actually do those consulting gigs during the day, and while you sleep as an entrepreneur, and I use that as in quotes, the development team is actually putting into practice the things that they should be overnight. So you wake up. I mean, that's what a great lesson about being efficient for 24 hours a day. It's not about staying awake for 24 hours a day, but it's about being code
Efficiency.
efficient for 24 hours a day, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have a wonderful team, and I don't think it would work with any other team. Like these guys are great.
I wonder, has anybody ever thought about, and I'm sure they have. I'm a little slow on these, but there's follow the sun service, right? Follow the sun support,
Hmm.
where basically as the sun sets in North America, as the sun sets in the east where we are, it shifts over to California because you got 3 hours extended on the day, and then it shifts over to the Far East in Asia and Japan and China or Korea,
Hmm.
and then it kind of follows the sun and it goes into I guess Indonesia would be the next, and then into India, and so on into Europe. I wonder if you could actually break this up into segments, like 6 hour segments of work, so that you get all the work done you can in the east, and then as the day progresses in Silicon Valley or the west coast of Canada, for example, they do the work, and then it's basically like 3 6 hour segments or 4 6 hour segments of a day where people are coding. So you're quite literally being productive 24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
Come on, who
That's
has somebody invented that yet?
that would take an immense amount of coordination, but if someone can pull that off, that's
Well,
beautiful.
you
Like
just
that's
need a good repository for your code
Mhm.
that's locked down and very very very. I mean, you know this. I mean, working doing your development offshore or overseas requires you to have a very 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 thorough development plan, right?
Mhm.
So no room for error, no margin for it's not decision making, but there's no margin for interpretation, right? There can't be, especially when you do this, because you don't want them going down a path. They're qualified developers, but you don't want them going down a path that is going to take them off of your core product, right? You don't
Mhm.
want them to have really to make a lot of decisions around it. It's got to be very, 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 very thorough. So I can see that you amplify your product pitch and your product scope so that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody knows what part they're working on. Who knows if it works? But you guys have seemed to be able to, and a lot of companies in the mobile space have seemed to be able to master this with offshore development. So, um, I don't see why it couldn't be done. But that's anybody
I,
out there
I,
who's doing that, let us know so we can see if we can be productive. Do interviews 24 hours a day. So, I mean, when do you roll this out then? When do you hope to roll this out?
officially, we want to hope to we hope to roll this out in the next 2 3 months. Now I
Okay.
say that optimistically,
Yeah.
but yeah, that would be the ideal situation.
And I mean, and people would be able to just sign up from the website. That's the whole idea. You just sign up, and you can do this right away. All the developers.
Yep. It's live now too. So I mean, we are only using a hand handful system right now, but as a developer, anyone can go sign up right now, and they have access to everything that the developers that are using it right now have access to.
Well, tell them where to go to get that information.
So that would be, and the plug is www.bizmey.com, and then yeah, you can register there.
And you know, what do you hope? Is this a long-term play for you guys? You said you want to build kind of a minimum viable product, and then, yeah, I mean, do you think about what's next for this platform, or are you just focusing on kind of next release?
There's definitely a map that we've kind of ourselves over the next 2 years, just kind of in terms of what other products or ideas of other products that can be implemented as we scale.
Yeah.
You know, integrating a whole bunch of other things. But obviously, you know, we, depending on what happens, there may be pivots there. But yeah, there's definitely it's somewhat of a very solid direction, and our vision really is to try to figure out that distribution and visibility issue that exists right now in the App Store, and it's a monumental task, but it's a fun one nonetheless.
Yeah, you know, I think that the you know, discovery is so important. I mean, it's one thing to build the applications, and this is the challenge. Architecturally, these app stores aren't the greatest. Recommendation engines aren't the greatest that are out there, and there are some great companies like Chomp and these guys who are building you know, not just recommendation, but discovery and recommendation applications. But I like a little bit of serendipity. And I think that that's one of the things is that, you know, I spend a lot of time on the app stores looking for applications. And I love serendipity where I find something, I'm like, oh, man, I'm so glad I found that. But, you know, no recommendation engine based on my prefs or the applications that I've downloaded onto my devices would have made that recommendation for me. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you got to balance the serendipity. But again, it comes back to how do people, and that's the riddle for you, is how do people find you to incorporate them into their apps and start to kind of prosper from sharing you know, other applications in this space. That to me is where there's a big piece of the puzzle. And as you bootstrap, you know, and development becomes less and less of importance, right? Because you've got your product and you're out there. You know, the big importance is going to be how do you fund the marketing and awareness making for your app? How do people discover your app? And that's going to be fun to watch. Boy, oh boy, that's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. I think there's also going to be a lot of like right now in the market, there's a lot of applications that solve a problem this narrow.
Yeah.
And you know, and kind of in that same stream of problem, there's another app in that problem. I think what's going to happen is, you know, someone's going to come along and realize that all these different problems that are solved by different apps can all be integrated into one, and that's where the efficiency is going to go.
Is that what you're hoping to be then?
Those are the kinds of apps that we want to find. Those are the kinds of apps that we want to attract. Like where there's a lot of value in, you know, just having that one, and that utilizes, you know, obviously the back end of it is completely different, but that utilizes everything that's in there in the most efficient way, and not just one small segment of it.
You know, I wish you the best. I definitely, you know, what it intrigued me about you guys was that it was a unique concept. One of the more unique concepts for app discovery, because it's in app and it's not about ads. And
thank you.
So I definitely want to stay in touch with you as you progress. So I'd love to have you back on when you launch the product, or just right after you launch the product, so that we can actually come back and see how things are going around this, and see if these theories, you know, around the number of apps, around discovery, come true. Because this will give you obviously some clear data around how people are discovering applications and what applications people want to use versus dismiss, right? The ones that drop off quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you back on to clarify that. Definitely.
Look forward to it. Yeah.
In the meantime, go to bizmey.com, B-I-Z or Z, depending on what nation you're in, MEY.com. to go and sign up for the beta. It's still open for companies, and then look for it in a number of months, 2 or 3 months, optimistically, to launch in the market. That's about right.
Yep.
Oh, listen, Salman, I really appreciate you doing this, coming on and telling the story about what you guys have done. Interesting pivot from virtual currencies into this mobile application distribution network. Love the fact that you're bootstrapping this. Love the fact that you're in Canada. Love the idea. Innovative to its core. And you guys out there who are building applications who need to create awareness for your app, and you do. The world is changing. You know that everybody's doing these freemium models right now. It's not about buying the app for $1.99. It's about longevity, and it's about consistently creating value for your customer to come back and spend a little bit more every month or every couple of months. You need awareness. You need a mass reach. Start using tools like this to be able to distribute your application, make some money, so that you can build more apps and make more money with your apps. And that's what this company does. So leverage them. Go after them. Talk to Bizmey. Talk to Salman. How's that for a pitch?
Better than I could have put it.
Wow, I love it.
Thank you.
Salman, I've been speaking with Salman Habib, who's the VP of Business Development for a company called Bizmey, bizmey.com. Go and check them out. Register for the beta. Thank you, Salman, for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Guys, wherever you may be, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. If you have any feedback, if you have a company that you think should be featured on Untether.tv, reach out untether@gmail.com. And we will see you on the next episode of Untether.tv. See you later.